I still replay that moment like it's burned into my memory. The neon glow of the bar, the bass shaking the floor, and her voice cutting through the noise as she leaned in and whispered, "You're ruining everything," before I even understood what I had done wrong. In the next second she reached for his hand. Not mine, his, and walked out without me like I had suddenly become an inconvenience she could leave behind. And that was the moment everything I thought I knew about us started collapsing. We had been together almost 3 years, a relationship that began in the most ordinary way at my marketing job where she joined as a junior coordinator, and somehow between late-night deadlines, shared coffee breaks, and arguing over silly things like who forgot to pay the electricity bill, she became my routine, my stability, the person I thought I was building a future with. We moved into a small rented apartment above a bakery that always smelled like burnt sugar in the mornings, and even. Our fights felt temporary back then because she used to end them by saying, "We're a team, don't forget that," and I believed her. That night at the bar was supposed to be a celebration for her company's completed project, something she insisted I join last minute through a text saying, "Come for a bit, don't be boring." And I remember smiling at that message as I got ready, wearing the dark blue shirt she liked, even picking up her favorite chocolate on the way thinking I'd leave early with her like we always did. But when I arrived, she was already deep in a booth surrounded by co-workers. And there was this one guy, Daniel, her senior colleague, tall, calm, effortlessly confident in a way that didn't need attention but still got it. And when she introduced me she said, "Oh, this is my boyfriend." But her eyes didn't stay on me long enough for it to feel real. At first I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was imagining things, but then I noticed how she leaned toward Daniel whenever he spoke, how she laughed at things that weren't even funny, how her attention drifted like I was just another person in the room, and minutes later I got a text from her saying, "Try to be social, you look out of place." And I remember staring at it too long because it didn't feel like teasing. It felt like dismissal. I tried anyway, forcing conversations, forcing smiles, but I felt like background noise in a space she had already mentally left, and when I went to get drinks and came back, I saw her showing Daniel something on her phone, both of them smiling at the same screen, and when she noticed me she quickly locked it and said, "Just work stuff," followed by, "Don't be weird about it," as if my confusion was the problem. Later I pulled her aside near the bar's edge, trying to keep my voice steady as I asked, "Are you okay? You've been distant all night," and she sighed like I was draining her patience and said, "You're overthinking again, just don't make this awkward, this is important for me," and the word important landed strangely because it didn't include me in it. After that everything shifted. She moved closer to Daniel again, their conversation tightening into something private, and I caught fragments about overseas opportunities and career growth until I heard him say, "You'd be perfect for the London role," and she didn't correct him, didn't hesitate, just said, "I'm considering it," while I sat there realizing I wasn't part of the conversation that seemed to define her future. The tension kept building until I finally asked her outside, away from the noise, "What's going on between you two?" And she looked at me like I was slowing her down and said, "Nothing is going on, why are you doing this here?" And when I told her she was acting like I wasn't even there, she just shook her head like the answer had already been decided somewhere I wasn't invited to. Then she walked back inside, grabbed Daniel's hand, and came back out with him like the decision had already been finalized. And I remember the exact sound of the door closing behind them as she said again, softer but sharper, "You're ruining everything," before adding, "I can't do this tonight." And I stood there frozen as she turned and walked toward the parking lot still holding his hand. I followed a few steps, confused, until Daniel finally said, "I didn't know this was happening like this." But she didn't let go of him, didn't even flinch, and then she looked at me and said, "I got an offer. I'm leaving for London." Daniel helped me secure it. I need to focus on my future. And just like that, it wasn't betrayal in the loud dramatic sense. It was something quieter and colder, like I had been slowly edited out of her life before I even realized there was a version without me. I went back inside alone, the music suddenly unbearable, the laughter around me distant, and her friends avoided my eyes as if I had become part of an uncomfortable truth. So I paid the bill out of habit, sat there staring at the glass I wasn't even drinking, and my phone buzzed with her message, "I didn't want you to find out like this." But I didn't reply because there was nothing left to say in that moment that wouldn't sound like begging or denial. Over the next few days she packed quietly, almost efficiently, like she was preparing for a trip rather than ending a relationship, and when I finally asked, "Was I ever part of your decision?" she paused just long enough to hurt me and said, "You would have tried to stop me," as if caring was an obstacle she needed to avoid. Daniel came by once to help her finalize documents, avoiding my eyes, and I realized then this had been forming long before that night at the bar. When she left, I didn't go to the airport. I couldn't, and instead stayed in the apartment that suddenly felt too large for one person, listening to silence where her presence used to be, until she texted one last time, "I hope you understand someday." And I didn't respond because understanding wasn't something I owed anymore. I started removing pieces of our life slowly, Photos from the wall, mugs from the kitchen, even the bakery receipts we used to joke about. And it wasn't anger I felt, just a strange emptiness where attachment used to live. Months later I heard she got the London role, exactly what she wanted, and I expected to feel something sharp like jealousy or regret, but instead there was only distance, like reading about a stranger's success. And I realized then that sometimes relationships don't end with explosions. They end with someone quietly choosing a different future while you're still standing in the old one, waiting for a version of them that already left.